Hey guys, this week's podcast is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the easiest way to create a beautiful website, blog, or online store for you and your ideas. Squarespace features an elegant interface, beautiful templates, and incredible 24/7 customer support. Try Squarespace at squarespace.com and enter the offer code COLT, that's C-O-L-T, at the checkout to get 10% off. Squarespace, build it beautiful.
This is the art of wrestling with professional wrestler Colt Cabana. It's Colt Cabana.
All right, how you guys doing? Come on in. Let's get this done. You're about to listen to The Art of Wrestling, a professional wrestling podcast. It's a life podcast. It's a personal journal. It's an entryway into the minds and souls, the hearts and lives of the people involved in the world of professional wrestling. I am your host. My name is Colt Cabana. I am a baseball juggler. I am a Scotland connoisseur. I am a podcaster, a live podcaster, also a studio podcaster. Most importantly, though, I am a professional wrestler, and I am sitting here live in the studio apartment in Chicago, Illinois. Before I go any further, this is a fan-supported and listener-supported podcast supported by people just like you. Give it to you free of charge every single Thursday on ColtCabana.com, SoundCloud, iTunes. A couple great ways that you can support, rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Helps the algorithm. Maybe tell a friend, tweet it out, Vine it out. Let the world know. Instagram, I'm on Instagram. The best way that you can do it, though, coltmerch.com, digitalcolt.com. T-shirts, buttons, pictures, posters, DVDs, digital downloads. That VHS T-shirt is up and running. Also, 2 brand new $5 wrestling movies where Marty and I do a alternative commentary joke track to 2 different wrestling movies. Body Slam, the movie, a tribute to Roddy Piper. We actually did it before he passed, but a great way to tribute the man. And also, The Chaperone. Yeah, if you want to hear Marty and I talk about the movie The Chaperone while we watch it with you, that's available at coltmerch.com and digitalcolt.com. I am back in Chicago. I'm back in my apartment. It's a beautiful, beautiful summer. Tail end of the summer, while in Edinburgh, it was not. It was rainy and shitey, and now I'm back here, and I'm catching the tail end of some sun and some rays in Chicago, jumping on the bike for a little bit before it turns to shit like usual. I will talk about my Edinburgh run in a second here, but I want to talk about my guest this week, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Finally got him on the show. It's been a couple of years. We were supposed to do it a couple of years ago, and then I think maybe even a year ago when he was starting his Global Force campaign and training people and doing seminars. And now that I was on these Global Force wrestling shows, Jeff and I were able to sit down and have this podcast. He was blown away that I did it weekly. Like, I feel that he knows what's going on, but he doesn't know what's going on, like, with me in this podcast. So send him a little love if you enjoyed it. Tweet him, let him know. I think he's a good dude. That's why I had him on the show. I like Jeff Jarrett. It could be easy not to like Jeff Jarrett. Sadly, I have some buddies that don't feel the way I do. But again, for me, I'm judging him based on my experiences with the guy. I met Jeff Jarrett in 2005 in Germany. A decent relationship with him throughout the years. That's going on about 10 years now. He would be easy to be a carny. He comes from the lines of the carnies. He would be easy, I would say, to be a hustler. He is a hustler. Of course he's a hustler. We're all hustlers. But he'd be easy to see through. And I'd like to think that I'm a good judge of characters. I've been in a lot of locker rooms. I've known a lot of people. I've met a lot of people from all different walks of life. And when I talk to him, I get a good vibe. And I think that's the most important thing. I always say follow your heart. I don't know if I always say that, but I believe it. Go with your gut instinct, follow your heart, like it's usually right. And I like to think I'm right on this one. I got a lot of friends who really, really like Jeff Jarrett. And there's guys out there who just feed you lines of bullshit. And you can also see just like the lying and debauchery coming off of them as they think they're fooling you. But Jeff, on the other hand, seems completely real. I enjoy his company. I enjoy talking to him. I enjoy the knowledge that he has, and that's always a fun one. The basis of this podcast was based off of probably me in locker rooms, always talking to these guys and curious about stuff, and then I get the idea to record it and do the same thing. So even if there was not a podcast, I'd still be asking them these kind of questions, although it's nicer. I don't look as much of a nerd because I'm doing it officially, and we have microphones. So glad he could be on, obviously promoting Global Force Wrestling. That's part of the gig. The big tapings in Las Vegas, Orleans Arena, October 23rd. If you're in that area, go support those guys. a lot of amazing talent will be at that arena. If you saw pictures of that arena before, it was packed and it looked awesome. So cool to see other dudes doing good. I do want to talk about Edinburgh. What a run it was. 20 some odd shows every single night. We were in a tent that had 150 people every night. It did not have 150. It could hold 150. Weekdays was about a third full. And then on the weekends, we did a great job of packing that tent, having a great show. A lot of performers go to this Fringe. Why do they go to it? There's thousands and thousands of shows. Some of them are successful. Most of them aren't. People do this, hopefully, to get on television, to become stars. People spend thousands of dollars on PR, advertising, billboards all over the city. I swear you have to come to the Fringe one year to see what the city looks like. It's just a mess of people's faces all over the streets trying to shill their show. Brendan and I, we did none of that. We did not lose all our money spending all our money on this stuff. I have a podcast. I got a Twitter. He's got a Twitter. And that's how we promote it. And thank fucking God the wrestling community came out in droves and helped support this show. And it's why I did it the last 2 years. It's why I did it this year. It's why I will continue to do it going on forward. But with that mentality, I want to get into that a little bit because I felt that I don't need TV. I don't want to be a sucker to be like, hey, I'm on TV. Look at me. This is what I tell myself on the inside. This is what I tell myself on the outside while speaking into a podcast microphone. But a situation came up and I was not proud of it. And I guess I don't know if I'm coming on here looking for an apology or apologizing to you. I guess I wouldn't be looking for an apology. I don't know if I'm apologizing to you or just speaking out loud, seeing where I'm at on this. But there was an opportunity for Brendan and I to go on television through NBC Digital, which is kind of a big deal. The NBC has a platform. They were looking for different comedians to come on a late night show, 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. Everybody was drinking. It was a rowdy, drink alcohol, get fucked up, and tape some comedians doing some weird shit. And I was super excited because, I don't know, people aren't asking me to do this. You can tell by my career for the last, X amount of years. Besides the Marin gig and Gethard had me on his Comedy Central pilot, a couple other things here and there. It's an underground deal, but they wanted Brendan and I on as a team, the wrestling guys, the funny guys, and they had a musical act on. Again, it was late at night. Everyone was drunk. They had a musical act on, and this guy started singing about some real inappropriate stuff, or inappropriate. I would say inappropriate. I guess for NBC, I would just assume that they wouldn't allow what this guy was talking about on, but they did. And he sang, being in the moment, wanting to ham it up because I was going to be, I guess, on television. And who knows if this will ever air. By the looks of it, I don't think it'll ever see the day of light, but I wanted to be a part of the show. The camera, there was 5 cameras there. The lights were on. Everyone was on. And it was like, hey, in my mind, hey, Colt, better keep up with these comedians. You better show your worth. You better show that you're worth being on television. And instead of just kind of stepping back and being myself and letting my own personality speak for itself, I got swept up. And I know this is being very vague. Essentially, this guy was talking about doing some weird shit to a paper boy. And I, along with all the other comedians who were shit-faced, were singing along with him. Again, I know vague. The point more is that I saw the cameras, I saw the limelight, I saw the opportunity to, hey, maybe you can be the star of this thing. And it goes against like everything I think of. And sadly, it shows I'm not exactly where I want to be in terms of where I want to be with myself and my career. And that's hard to admit. But it's the fucking truth. It's the fucking truth. I thought I was good to go, but put in a situation like that, I still wanted to steal the show. That's such a lame wrestling reference, but I wanted to show my worth when I know my worth. It was a good test. I failed, and hopefully there's more tests like that will come forward that I can pass. But that's all part of the madness that comes with the Edinburgh Fringe. I'll take it. It was a great summer. Song of the Week this week is brought to you by Squarespace.com. You might have noticed ColtCabana.com has been totally redone. Now you should do the same thing with your website. It's not 2001 and you don't have to be a wizard these days at HTML. It's drag and drop with easy-to-use tools thanks to Squarespace. Squarespace also has state-of-the-art technology powering your site to ensure security and stability. Some of the most respected businesses in the world use these guys. Literally millions of people use Squarespace. You can trust them. With 24/7 online support, you can have your site for only $8 a month. You even get a free domain name if you buy it for a year. Use my offer code COLT. Get 10% off your first purchase. Start your free trial today with no credit card required at squarespace.com. You've got ideas, you need to show them off. Business, portfolio, restaurant, wrestling site, wrestling store. Be smart with your brand and head on over to Squarespace. Make sure you use my offer code COLT and get that 10% off. Squarespace. Build it beautiful. All right, on the live podcasts, I threw out a challenge for somebody to put some kind of awesome remix together of Dreidel, 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 and Iron Jew together. That's myself and Grado. And Killy Music stepped up to the plate, and they delivered this. I think it's really fun. I'm going to play it. Support this dude, soundcloud.com/KILLIE music. This is the Iron Jew remix. Enjoy it, and we'll be back with Jeff Jarrett.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Thanks to our sponsor, DraftKings.com. Today, your season-long fantasy football lineup is locked in and ready for action, but you don't have to wait until Week 16 to get paid. Put your fantasy skills to the test starting Sunday at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site where you can kick the season off by winning $2 million. $10 million in total will be given away this season. 1 week fantasy means no season-long commitments. Fantasy football on demand. Play where you want, when you want, with the players you want, and turn your love of football into a life-changing payday. Pick your players, pile up the points, and pick up your cash. It's the big time, folks. It's DraftKings. Hurry to DraftKings.com now and use my promo code WRESTLE to play for free for a shot at part of $10 million in Sunday's Millionaire Maker event. Enter WRESTLE for free entry now only at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com. You've been hard to get on this thing.
That's not true. That's not true. How long does this go back? It goes back to, correct me if I'm wrong.
You and I, our fight to have you on a podcast?
Do what now?
How long does what go back? Our fight to have you on this podcast?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that would have been, when did Dave Lagana come on board? Was it, he was?
Probably. Well, the point of reference would be when Borash was on my show, I guess. So, for the fans that remember when Jeremy was on the show, because I went to Jeremy's apartment in Nashville. I don't remember what I was doing. I must have been doing a show. Oh, I was doing a show at the fairgrounds.
The Asylum.
Sorry.
Affectionately, no, it's the fairgrounds. I grew up going to the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
It was 3 miles from my house, but go ahead.
Wow, yeah. And then, I had some stuff in Nashville, and I reached out to you, and then what happened was my plane got delayed. And so I got in late. And then you had stuff with the fam.
It's Office and the Fam.
Yeah.
So this is 3 years in the making.
Something like that.
The podcast in the making. Is that how we're going to bill it?
No.
Yeah, that's how I'm going to promote it on my Twitter at Real. No.
A lot of it's funny because of the global stuff and the promoting. A lot of this I want to talk about. I am intrigued, I guess, about the promoting aspect, but also how that goes back to the back in the days, because I am I don't know if I am a Memphis mark.
You've never struck me with that, but I think you are. I don't want to get too wordy here, but almost sort of in a wrestling historian from a Colt Cabana perspective.
From a perspective, I'm just very intrigued. The times before, the way the guys did it before me, I get very romantic about, if that makes sense.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, and so and I guess not that I don't want this to be a start of, because I do want it to be a flow, but like, so when you were a kid, like, would you think about, were there guys that you thought about, or at least maybe when you broke in, and then the older guys would talk about the time it was or when it was?
Every generation does that.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Or it's almost
15
like, who was
years
your
from now,
guys?
Colt, you're going to be riding in a car, and you're going to have some 19-year-old kid in the back seat, and you're going to want to pull the car over and punch him out.
But
because this kid doesn't know what he's talking
Yeah,
about.
well,
It just happens that way. But yes, and that I'm 48 now.
okay.
And so 29th year, the next April will be my 30th year. And so I sort of get not emotional, but in one aspect, it seems like just yesterday that I was 16 years old, had no business being in a ring truck, let alone driving the ring truck. Oh, let the kid drive it, and pulling up to high school gyms and me and whoever I was with and setting up the ring and setting up the chairs and doing all that stuff. And the Fabulous Ones are around, or the Fantastics, or the Moondogs, who I later got to work with, but I was scared to death at 16.
Yeah.
Phil Hickerson. I mean, I could go on and on with names. Handsome Jimmy. I was, as a kid, he was one of my favorites. And then you show up to a town and you see Handsome Jimmy get out of his car, and he's just so low-keyed. And, so yes, I was lucky enough to live the life, for better or worse, right, the territory life. We did Monday for 7 years. I did Memphis trip Monday. Every Monday we went to Memphis from my home in Nashville. Every Tuesday we went to Louisville. Every Wednesday we went to Evansville. That's there and back, there and back. Thursday, anywhere from Louisville, Kentucky to a spot show that we called it, just a high school gym, Armory. And Friday, the same thing. And then Saturday morning, 90-minute live Memphis television. And then you jump in the car and eat and go do Nashville on a Saturday night. And that was my life for 7 years.
For 7 years. So you'll talk about the guys now, not now, but like people they're always like, oh, I wish I could be, let's say, in WWE or whatever. And then some of those guys, they just get burnt out on that loop. And people don't understand that, like, even the dreams or your dream or whatever it might be, once you're there, just can get exhausting.
It is.
7 years of doing that loop.
7 years. I had several stretches, and it's, there's legendary stories of the late 80s of WWF guys being on the road for 2 and 3 months and all that kind of stuff.
But at least it's different zigzags, right?
Well, I mean, it's still taxing. It's travel. But I had 2 or 3 times during my 7-year run that I worked over 100 and 120 days straight because we were running Sundays at the time. And that's a grind. I mean, that is.
But you're doing the literal same loop.
Yes.
Did you say to yourself?
Well, you used to say we're short haul truckers because it's what the FedEx guys do, or up and back, up and back. But yeah, we would do that, and that's a really, to me, a huge blessing as it relates to wrestling, because when you're wrestling in front of, it is the same crowd, but it's up and down. But when you're in the same city every Monday, same city every Tuesday, you don't have a choice either to make it work or you're out. It's that simple. It really is that simple.
Who is the guy that understood that the most? Because it's
a no. I mean, now in my area, but in the territories that back in the day, all of them had different ones. But Jerry Lawler. I mean, Jerry Lawler
is the reinvention of himself, right? Is that kind of that's what I'm thinking?
No, I mean, are you talking about the guy who understood it the best?
Well, the guy that understood that, like, I'm going to be here for 7. Let's just say, in context of you, I'm going to be here for 7 years. I can't show him the same show for 7 straight years. You know what I'm saying?
You didn't really look at it that way. You better say, I hope I'm here next month, and then the next month, and then the next month. And Lawler was smart enough not just smart enough, but talented enough that he got on top. He was if you haven't seen, I'm sure you have, but any of your listeners hadn't seen Jerry Lawler as a heel back in the day, you don't really know Jerry Lawler. Unbelievable believability, and then he went from a legendary heel to a legendary babyface, and just had staying power because he knew how to tell that story week after 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 week. Believable. He was very believable.
And did you see him doing? Could you see that?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's what, if there's one of the top things, and he used to tell me, and I've heard old timers, a great piece of advice is when you're in the ring, not who cares. Don't work to the front row. Work to the person on the back row. If you suck them in, the rest is gravy. And so you watch him, and that's his in-ring work. And then his promo ability, he's one of the guys that not to be cliche-ish, but just play an extension of your personality. Mm-hmm. Don't be somebody you're not.
Right.
People, you're not that, so the people know that. Mm-hmm. And Jerry just had an amazing ability that just week after week, when the strap came down.
And as his career, as he was doing that, like where, in context, almost like where were you?
I guess Lawler's biggest run was probably 82 to 86, 7. I started in April of 86, and at that time he was off. He'd taken a sabbatical, him and my father, co-owners, they would go back and forth. And we did the deal where I was refereeing, and Lawler, Dundee and Landell beat me up and really beat me up and had fun doing it. And then my dad came out and they got on him, and my dad came in and said, I'm going to call Lawler and get him back on the phone. And Lawler came back.
So literally when you started wrestling was when Lawler...
Well, he'd gone back and forth, but his real hot run, but Lawler...
At the end, though, of his hottest.
At the end of his hot. And he came back and it sold out. And it's off of, I'm going to go see Lawler kick ass.
Right.
It was that simple, what the fans wanted to see. But yeah, and then...
But so, I'm sorry, but so...
And let me say, not that when Lawler's hottest, the territory was all territories. Mm-hmm. When WrestleMania, Hulkamania came along in the late 80s, every territory in the country went down. It was just the nature of the beast. AWA, Crockett's, Texas, everything started to go
And
down.
now in wrestling, for the last, whatever it's been, the last couple of decades, it's when wrestling is hot, all wrestling is hot. But that was the complete opposite, huh? Does that make sense?
It does, but it doesn't.
We see it in the so like I started in, let's say, 99 at that Attitude Era where it was like and because of that, my first shows were like in front of 1,000 people in independent wrestling.
Got it.
Wrestling was hot. People just wanted to come see wrestling.
Got it. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Appropriately said. But
as opposed to 10 years later when it was in front of 50 people consistently.
Yeah, no, but that's the ebb and flow of the business.
Yeah.
And I think we're on that right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course.
You can feel something. I've felt it for a couple of years.
But when Vince McMahon took over the territories, that wasn't. And when wrestling was hot at WrestleMania, that wasn't the.
Yes, the territories were not hot because I can remember. I mean, God, those guys, probably 88, 87, 88, 89. They would come into Nashville at the Municipal Auditorium and like turn people away on a house show, and our territory was at the fairgrounds. Up and down. We'd have a good 6-week pop, and then it'd be back down. Obviously, we were there 52 weeks a year, so there was a complete. The business model changed of the whole complete structure. Instead of running weekly or monthly towns, the Guard would only get. Well, in those days they would still go monthly, but it'd go to everything just stretched out. We're going to go to Pittsburgh every 3 months. We're going to go to Chicago every 3 months instead of a monthly type deal.
The loops became bigger, and I'd imagine didn't drive the people as crazy. I don't know, when you see different towns.
Yeah.
Going back to the same, I'm in Nashville every Monday. I'm in Louisville every Tuesday. So you weren't wrestling. So you said Lawler's was 82 to 87. That stretch of like watching a man really grow, right?
Well, he was just red hot. And remember, in 1980, I was 13 years old.
I'm going to say, so you watched it as almost a fan.
Well, completely. Remember, the business was so different then that I wasn't completely on the inside.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see everything. Although I would see, when I was 14 or 15 years old. I was a high school basketball player, and so I was going to basketball camps all during the summer. And my dad said, "Yeah, Jimmy Hart's going to pick you up." And I said, "Who?" Jimmy Hart. And I at that time I knew, okay, he's not going to get in the car and hit me with his megaphone, but it's Jimmy, and this is going to be, Jimmy picked me up. So, but anyway,
after basketball camp,
he took me to Memphis State basketball camp and dropped me off because whatever. I was a kid, but still I was old enough to check myself in and out of the camp. But he was convenient enough. He was in Memphis, and Jimmy was going back from Nashville to Memphis, and he took me to camp.
What a carnival life! That's amazing. So he's obviously the heel of the territory.
Huge,
yeah. And
huge.
so that was the first thing that kind of was like, oh.
No, the first thing there was a couple of things. It was by almost osmosis, if that makes sense, that I started to go, wait a minute.
Sure.
What's going on around here? Those dudes.
Pick up things one at a time.
Guys come by and get their checks.
But obviously, like, once you really get into it, that's when you can start, and I'm not meaning to bring this all back to Lawler, but you could start, in a business aspect, looking at how Lawler did stuff and how, so you weren't even like,
well,
your brain didn't process it the same way you would have as if you were in the ring on the road with all those guys.
No, but I can remember as a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid, whatever it was, my grandmother promoted.
Jesus. And I do kind of want to get like a history of the Jarrett promotion.
And she made it in a man's world. I mean, really made it in a man's world. And she never had a driver's license. So she always had somebody drive her around in those days. You know, there weren't a lot of flights. You didn't do, it was all car.
Yeah.
And so she would have, you know, her niece or a family member or a family friend. Her best friend was Jim Cornette's mother. So I mean, it's a unique set of circumstances. But she would drive to these towns, and I would go with her, and we called them window cards back there, but it's posters and flyer and all that. And that's really when I fell in love with the business, the fascination that, you know, you got to promote, you got to go by radio, you got to go by newspaper, you got to do this. And I can remember my grandmother, when she would get the card, you know, whoever would be booking or matchmaking.
She was promoting pro wrestling.
She was promoting pro wrestling. Her and my dad were partners in Louisville and Evansville. It was a fragmented umbrella of a business, but my dad had business partners. One was his mother, one was Lawler. It was a different set of different towns. But my grandmother promoted on her own the armories, the high school gyms. And when she would get a card, the 5-match card or whatever it was, you know, she'd get Lawler. You could hear it out of her voice. Oh yeah, I'm really going to promote this bad boy because we're going to draw and we're going to make some money. So it starts mentally as a kid. Okay, these aren't really just a bunch of names. You better have, you know, a great main event, and better have a good semi-main event, and then you better have an undercard that gives great action or whatever it may be. And so started seeing that, and then we'd go to a town and promote it, and then come back 2, 4, 6 weeks later, and you'd have a full high school gym, and you'd run out of Coca-Cola and popcorn, you'd run out of 50-cent programs, but at the end of the night, I'm like, okay, this thing can be profitable here.
Did you talk to her about how she got into promoting? Was that a common thing? So, like, when did she start getting into promoting?
I told this story and got emotional, and it came out of nowhere. In Las Vegas at the Orleans, when we did the press conference announcing that we're going to be out there filming back in May and did all that, I was getting ready this morning. I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to be asked? How am I going to kick this off? And I'm like, okay, and it hit me. My grandmother was walking down the street in downtown Nashville. She was a single mother of 2. Her husband went to war. He came back to the States but didn't come home, if that makes sense. Okay. So she's a single mom and raising 2 kids and need to find a second job. And she went by the place where she used to buy her shoes and the kids' shoes and all that, and it says, help wanted is one sign, and the other ticket sign said wrestling tickets for sale. And she went in and she said, hey, I saw your sign out there. And he said, which one? She said, both. And the guy goes, well, Miss Christine, what would you? She's like, I need a second job. So her first job in the business was selling wrestling tickets.
So she'd grab the tickets from there and try to hustle them on the streets?
No, she was the ticket seller in the shoe store.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and she did that, and I'll speed through this, but one thing led to another, and she eventually worked her way into the wrestling promotion. Nick Goulis, Roy Welch is what it was called back in the day, Goulis Welch Wrestling, and she, what you would call the CFO. She ran the back end of the business, the money and the bookkeeping and all that kind of stuff.
And just years of those guys trusting her and her becoming part of that team, right?
She did, yeah. I mean, she was, I think as I look back on it, she was like the middle person that Goulis and Welch, the promoters, are running and gunning, and she had to be those lines of communication. You're going to get paid here, you're going to get paid this much, and that kind of stuff. But as she worked her way up, that's how she did it. And then that's how my dad started hanging around that's mom's work, so I'm going to hang around. And so what's he going to do as a summer job? He started promoting wrestling shows on the, just small scale, very small scale. And so he did that, and then he got through high school, married my mom, had 2 kids, got away from the business completely, and then came back and had a corporate job. And he was, and this story's been told over and over, he was 26 or 27, out of the business. My grandmother's in it. She didn't want him in it. And he was moving up the corporate ladder at a gosh, it's a bicycle making company. Anyway, in
Schwinn?
Murray, Ohio.
Okay.
Schwinn.
It's the only one I know.
Yeah. And his boss got fired out of nowhere, and they came in the next day and they said, we're going to put you in this position. And he's like, okay, so I'm going to work at this place 15 years and I'm going to get canned just like my boss. And he didn't do anything wrong. I'm out.
Interesting.
I'm out. And so he started promoting. And
Much like, you know what? It's funny because it's much like wrestling.
Yeah.
I look at some of some of the referees or some of those office guys that are just put in all their time and then just pieced out. It's kind of interesting that it all,
dog eat dog world.
Yeah, it really is. And that's also the important, if there's ever a lesson that at least I preach, it's like, do your own thing so nobody can fire you.
Yeah. And
essentially that's what he did. Do you remember, so you had to have promoted, just like your dad promoted when he was like probably 17 or 18. Do you remember did you promote at like a real young, were you like a 16-year-old promoting prodigy?
No, I didn't get to do that. But no, I mean, because my grandmother and my dad, they're not going to let me. They're not going to.
They didn't give you they didn't say, hey, here's a D town over here, and
didn't happen. But
underneath Knoxville.
But what I did get to do, and it took a headache off them. But then they, it is that I got to do concessions. In that, I'd go buy the hot dogs, the Cokes, the popcorn, all of that. And, as a 15-year-old kid, my buddies are cutting grass or working for helpers with their dad's construction or whatever it is, and I'm helping out here. And when you look at, it's just the nature of the beast. Concessions, huge markup. I mean, you go to a pro sports game and you buy a $10 beer, and they have 30 cents in it. I mean, it's so not those big of markups back then, but I got to do that, and then I would sell programs. So I got to do merchandise and concessions for all these different towns in high school, and that's really when you get a real taste of that.
And it's not, and I'll say this on like I went to business school. I have a degree with a marketing degree. Yeah, but it's
where'd you graduate?
Western Michigan University.
Okay,
but it's not. That's exactly where you learn. Like,
yes,
you went to business without even knowing.
If you knew you were in school or other people know they're in school. I didn't know I was in school.
Yeah, right.
Not a clue.
But it clicks or hits like probably not one day or years later. It's like, people wanted these $3 pops that were 10 cents or whatever, right?
That's it. Yeah. So you go to before Sam's. There was a downtown candy company in Nashville, and I'm going to buy candy, and I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to go over here and buy these. It's funny, the big thing of suckers that you go in there, and instead of doing one for, and my math will be wrong here, one for a nickel, I'm going to give you 3 for 10 cents.
Yeah.
You just go, oh wow! If you give a little value added. The people were happy because they got 3, but instead of a nickel, I got a dime out of every purchase.
It's literally business school is just common sense, I feel.
It's trial and error. You learn that about programs. Naturally, you may find this completely BS, but as a kid, I was pretty shy at times. But I'm telling you, you get out and sell programs, if you're not loud, you're not selling a program.
Right.
You've got to sort of come out of that shell. Programs, 50-cent programs. And that works okay. Then you got to go programs. Jerry Lawler's on the cover. Handsome Jimmy Valiant. You will not. You got to sell. So that was my marketing class,
and also a wrestling lesson, right? Because I'm the same way. I was pretty not extremely shy, but shy enough.
Yeah.
But once you go, like at least for me, and I can only imagine with all those guys. Well, like once you're in a van with wrestlers, and you realize like, oh, I got to be out of my shell. I got to start cutting promos on the waitresses, right? Like
they're gonna eat you alive. Yeah. It's life.
Yeah. So you were so the first match in the first angle was 16 or 17. Is that what you said?
I refereed my summers, but no angle.
Okay.
Just refereed, just spot shows when I pulled the ring, and then I played college basketball one year.
For who?
My Aquinas Junior College, and my claim to fame is it was a junior college, and I went there my freshman year. I started wrestling. My sophomore year, they win the national championship. So how about that?
Were you salty about it?
No. I knew real quick. I love basketball. I mean,
it's that ring, right? You get a ring.
But I knew my freshman year, and I'll brag. No, I started every game, but I knew real quick. I'm not going to the next level here. I can't jump high enough. I'm not fast enough. I fell out of love with basketball. That was a huge wake-up call, and I got the opportunity. I played a basketball tournament on a Friday night and was in Memphis TV the Saturday morning, and my coach didn't know. So I started wrestling before my basketball career was over, or started refereeing in the angle and all that.
Just to parallel this with you and I was really good in high school football. Went to play college football, was the worst, and then fell out of love with football.
Yeah.
Because I was really, what am I going to... And that's when I started wrestling. I had preventing wrestling. Because, I knew... I guess I don't love football anymore. It was weird when but you were really good at basketball. I was really good at high school football.
That's what we were both good high school athletes, but we just couldn't take it to that next level.
Yeah.
And I think obviously we were both pretty smart enough to say, you know what?
What's the point?
What are we doing here?
Yeah. You were always in that Memphis area.
Nashville, Tennessee, born and raised. It's 200 miles to the east of Memphis, 200 miles south of Louisville, 140 miles south. It's very centrally located.
Now, I know you were doing the AWA stuff.
Yep.
One of my, I don't know, but there's always that Eric Embry match at
Clash of the Super Clash.
Super Clash,
Super
right.
Clash 3 out in Texas Stadium. Oh, in Chicago,
Yes.
Rosemont. Not Rosemont, Champaign.
Comiskey, I feel.
Champaign,
Was it not the
USC
White-
Pavilion.
Was it the UIC? I thought it was on on a baseball stadium.
No, USC Pavilion.
Okay.
If that sounds right. Yeah.
Downtown Chicago.
Yeah.
But you were there representing Memphis, right?
Pretty much.
And also, when you were in Texas, you were there because guys had bought that out, right?
Yes. Well, the first Cotton Bowl show I did, I just came down. We hadn't done the transaction. That's when the relationship first started. But yeah, that was, I started in 86. By 88, I was doing a little Puerto Rico stuff. I was actually in Las Vegas and in one locker room. The Nasty Boys, the Midnight Rockers, me. When I look back on, we were doing those tapings at the Showboat Arena.
For AWA.
Yeah, for AWA. So that was you look back and go, oh wow, that was there was some young talent in there that didn't know what the hell they were going on.
Right.
No, it was fun. And then the Puerto Rico days.
So I just kind of want to but it was all representing. You were always there representing Memphis.
Yeah, I never went anywhere full time.
Okay.
I stayed at home. Puerto Rico. Yeah, no, none of them were regular.
What was the Puerto Rico?
Just went down there.
Just did a couple
Carlos
weekend
Colon.
shows?
I did anniversary show. I do the go down and work 4 shows in the anniversary and go back a couple of months later. And
So when you started as Double J in WWF or whatever, that was your first time kind of leaving the nest?
it completely,
Okay.
without question. I finished up because I started in October of '93. And Lawler had an unfortunate situation. I wasn't supposed to be on the road, and I signed in October, and all of a sudden I'm working against Bret Hart in San Diego, Honolulu, San Francisco. He was supposed to be Lawler and Bret at the time, and I got thrown right into that for a loop. And then I started in January. They were running the vignettes, the Double J vignettes, the 13 infamous vignettes.
Are they infamous?
I don't know.
Oh, do people give you shit? I mean, I don't know. If I'm just on the spot right now, I'd imagine I kind of remember them. Were you riding a horse on some of them, or
No, it was introductory. It was
like I'm a Nashville star. I'm a music star.
I was in front of the Ryman. I was in a talent agent getting thrown out of it. God, you're putting me on the spot. Yeah, it was 12 of them, and 13 that did a mashup. So it was week after week. But that's one of the things when I do these kind of podcasting and I look back on it, when I really think about going from good guy, babyface Jeff Jarrett in Tennessee in that area to Double J Jeff Jarrett stepping on that stage, and the luxury that I had that people didn't see me live for 3 months. They saw these vignettes week after week after week after week after week after week. And it's, I mean, obviously Vince is brilliant, but he knows how to intro a character, and it's that patience.
But I want to know more about your mentality of making that jump. And that's what kind of
it was time. Without question. I mean, the territory system, I think USWA was the last of the 22 or right there. It was time. There was I had a couple opportunities to go to Crockett or
WCW?
WCW. It was called NW. Had they changed over? I forget. But I had a couple of times in 90, 91, and the beginning of 93. they had made offers.
Because as a fan at that time, right? What were the years? 99?
I want to say 90, 91 and 93.
Yeah, so I'm like 11, 12.
Runs.
I'm looking through the magazines. I always see you in the magazines. This is just as a 12-year-old Colt Cabana.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, he's just there. That's where he's going to go. And you had been there like in my mind, you'd been there a long time.
6-7 years.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, well, if they wanted him, he would have left already. Obviously, I don't know the case. I'm kind of...
Well, it was a family business.
Right.
So, your heartstrings stay here with the family business. And then, whatever the decision was made, wherever, my father was like, no, let's stay here with the family business. And then he knew the time was right. There was a lot going on with the WWF. Lawler had left our territory, not full-time, but he had gone up and he was working with Bret Hart. It was, he went first, and then I followed. He was color commentator. So it was just time to go.
And did you have like a long sit down with your dad? Was your dad promoting still then and after?
Yeah, but he was actually working for, if you remember, when Vince was in the scandal, the steroids, he was on their payroll.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was if you want to get technical, he went first.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he went first. And then we knew it was time and it was time to step on that stage.
All right. So you had never been a heel before.
Never.
And I just imagine you had to have been okay. A, were you excited to be a heel? B, you had to have been so ready due to watching all those guys.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Yes. I mean, because they're it's yes. I don't even know how to put it in words. I could not wait. I felt it. You can call it a character, but Colt, you're not really a character. You're Colt. Well, the Double J, I love country music, love to sing, although I don't let people know that too much. But anyway, it was let's go do this. I was ready. I was really excited to get the opportunity.
Were you in on that song?
What song? Of course I was.
I mean, was that all you? Did your friends? No, I don't mean the singing of it. Was Vince like, hey, make me a song, or was that like Jim Johnston?
What's that? With My Baby Tonight?
Yeah.
With My Baby Tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a Jim Johnston too.
That's a Jim Johnston.
Yeah, completely.
Okay.
Completely. 100%.
100%. Did he sit down with you like
No.
Vader and be on the mat and like?
No, that was all him.
Okay.
That was all him.
Okay. There's a little bit, man. I did want to talk about. I don't want to go away from Memphis because I think it's so interesting.
We'll keep talking.
Yeah.
We'll make it a 2-parter.
We might have to. That you, all those guys. I want to kind of go back to what when we started talking. You were, I kind of want. I don't want to leave that. What those guys before, did they talk about a territory before? Did they talk about a territory before, or not? Was it always just in Memphis? The guys before, so like when you're 17, 18 in the locker room, there's guys that are 35 or 40.
No, I mean,
was there a dream place where you like, man, I wish I could have been in that?
Oh no, well, Handsome Jimmy at that time. There's a great story, and I don't know all the details, but as a top guy, Lawler and my father bought Handsome Jimmy a house in Memphis because they wanted him to put down his roots there because he was a huge drawing card. Well, his roots were over in the Carolina, or wanted him to be. His wife at the time and kids and all that. So yeah, you would hear Crockett's Red Hot, and that's when they were going on those Great American Bash tours. The Louisiana, Bill Watts and those guys were down, and then all of a sudden, Dundee, Dutch Mantell, Jim Cornette, the Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express, they went down there, and the old saying, "Pop the territory." Well, that really was accurate. Those guys blew the doors off, and then the JYD story and just how hot he was, and so yeah, you would hear. It was in those days, Florida's down or Florida's up. It's how the vernacular was Florida down, Florida up. Carolinas is doing good. Texas is doing the shits.
Yeah.
San Antonio's almost dead. Oh, no, Houston pop with Paul Bosh. You just hear all, Geigel in Kansas City, Leroy McGurk in Oklahoma, Gagne, up in Minneapolis and Shires and Don Owen. And so you just heard all the territory talk.
You just hear
and
where are they all hearing it from? Just the
in
boys?
the dressing room. Yeah, the dressing room. I mean, and back in those days, it's, hey, you guys making any money over there? How's this going? You got a spot for me? I kind of feel that my time is up here. Because, outside of Lawler and Dundee and...
Was that secretive?
No.
It's wide open.
What,
Hey, Frank, I need a spot somewhere. They hate me here. Like,
Yes. Yeah, well, it wasn't really hating. It was
Jarrett's booking me for shit over here.
That's right. You knew your time was coming in. You start losing 8 weeks in a row.
Right.
Yeah, okay. They don't have a lot of plans for me around here. And each territory, and ours, it was Lawler, number one babyface. Dundee, who could be a heel or a babyface. Jimmy Hart was that heat magnet heel that you could put any team with. Dutch was in and out because he had a brain as well as a great talent. But you had 4 or 5 in each territory that you knew they were pretty much staying. Dutch would go to Puerto Rico. Dundee went down to Louisiana. But you had a core group. Dusty had his core group, and the Grahams had theirs, and the Von Erichs had theirs. And every group sort of had their roots. But everybody else, you had a hotline. Hey, can you get me a spot over there? I want to come over. You were always looking for your next job, or those guys were.
Yeah,
that had to be tough.
The journeymen. Was there another name for them? What was
no. I mean, journeyman. I really think journeyman came from media or modern day. I think the journeyman wrestler came out in the mid '90s. I never heard that as a kid.
Okay.
I always heard that either he's an old timer who can come in and be there for 12 weeks and out, or there's this young talent and let's see if we can get 2 months out of him, 3 months out of him, and let him move on. But it's developing talent, like Sting and Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah.
The story, they show up on my dad's doorstep on Thanksgiving 1985, and I don't know how many months they stayed, but it wasn't, it certainly wasn't a year, and he let go of both of them. And within 18 months, both of them were world champions in their respective companies. Sting went right to the top, and Dingo Warrior went there to Ultimate Warrior champ. So, I mean, it's sort of how our business at the time worked. You went territory to territory to territory, and you learned a little bit, and then all of a sudden, what were Sting and what were they called here?
Vampire Warrior?
No.
The
Power team, whatever.
Power.
But then all of a sudden, when he became Sting, he came into his own. When Dingo Warrior came Ultimate Warrior, he took,
don't tweet us about that. We're literally going to Wikipedia it right after. I'm just, because I'll be bombarded by fucking tweets.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no. I know Vampire Warrior was wrong. So I'm like, people on the podcast know of like my like anxiety almost of like worried about my next steps in my life. Like I'm almost wondering, were these guys always paranoid? Because
Yes.
Had to have been super paranoid that they weren't going to catch on with, or because it's like, hey, you only have 3 months here, and then you have to move your whole life.
But you don't really know. Now there you can take a little of the air out of the anxiety. They always went in, and I got lucky. I didn't live that. I was blessed.
But you saw a rotating door.
Yes. Yes, I mean you that was the nature of the beast, and everybody came in highly competitive. I mean, they wanted to get over.
Yeah.
It's that simple. I'm going to get myself over because it's about a paycheck. It's not about having the best match. It's not about I'm going to get over because I want to make a career out of this.
Now, there's rules to that. You know that best. So, right, there's a fine line of someone who comes in, and maybe there's examples or maybe not, of someone who says, I'm going to come over, I want to get over, and then all the boys are like, this guy's trying to get over at the expense of something.
And it didn't happen. The unwritten rules were it was a crazy game of golf back then. But the unwritten rules, I guess, were adhered to, or you didn't have a job your next place.
And what were I guess, don't beat up the
I mean, there's you just had guidelines. Boy, that would actually. We should write a thesis on that. What are the unwritten rules of professional wrestling in the territory days?
Yeah, I'm sure there's. What an ebook that would make.
Yeah, really.
That's almost a funny statement in itself. Territorial wrestling, and now an ebook on the territorial wrestling.
There's gonna be somebody out there right there.
Yeah,
me and Colt want our royalties.
And I guess that can go to a transition of how much it's all changed, and as you're changing, you're obviously smart enough, with the global force stuff. Well, but you know that it's got to change. It's evolving, and obviously. So we talked about the first episode a little bit.
What'd you think about it?
And I was watching it, and what the gist I get, and can I talk about whatever?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
Right. You're obviously going for more of like almost like a reality show type of.
I hate that word, but go ahead.
Feel.
Yes.
Do you have a different word for it? Maybe you would say.
Well, no, and this is. it truly has come out organically. We don't want to write stories. We want to document them. And
so maybe a docu
style.
Yeah.
That's what we're calling it, because reality just has that. Yes, I totally agree with you. But reality has such that nowadays in 2015. It didn't have that in 2005, 6, 7. 2015 reality show, you think Kardashians, you think Duck Dynasty, and those are the best. I mean, there's some bad reality TV out there.
Fox Camp boot style.
Yeah, that's so scripted. It's more
boot camp Fox style. Sorry.
Yeah, whatever. But no, we everybody has their story. I mean, we're sitting here. I think I'm sitting down talking to you today. You're wanting me to be here, not really, to speak candidly, not to talk about Global Force Wrestling. You want to sort of hear me tell my story.
Of course.
What happened? You want to do that,
and I want to know how I can relate to it.
Yeah, that's it. And so that's what we're really, really passionately, me and the Global Force team is trying is everybody's got a story. We really do. I mean, you've got a podcast. Wrestling is just one thing that you do. To have a living. I mean, you don't do a podcast to have fun, although you have fun doing it, but you don't do it strictly to have fun. So we all got a story. Sanjay, Mordetsky, Nick Aldis. We could go on and on. PJ Black. His story is pretty fascinating.
You
to
should
me.
listen to the podcast I did with him.
Oh wow, I will.
Yeah, and he talks about his father on there. It was nuts, man.
Yeah, wow, I got to listen to it. But we all got a story, and then and at the end of the day, all of these stories, and it's an old cliche that it's all got to end up back in the ring. It does. If the story told right, you don't have to get crazy and have, broomstick on a pole match, although Tennessee territory is legendary for crazy matches. But our stories of professional wrestlers, all of us, men or women, we have a story, and we're trying to document that at Global Force.
Okay, I mean, I was going to stay on that, but now I have to ask about the weird matches. Sorry. I mean, we'll get back right into that, but hold on. What matches were the weirdest?
Oh, I don't know. But I mean, in Tennessee, it was something that my dad had, he wasn't afraid to fail. I think I'm blessed to sort of take that. If you don't really push the limit and fail, you don't know how far you can go.
What did he make up that was a success? Dog food? Loser eats dog food?
Scaffold match.
Was his.
And when you say successful, it's all the only thing that we determine whether the match was successful, not really the execution of it, the bottom line. Did people come see it?
Okay.
But did people come see it? And so, dog food match in the right story, yeah, it absolutely sold out many of high school gyms. Loser eats dog food with the right opponent. I mean, you're going to see Jimmy Hart eat dog food. I'm going to go pay to see that.
And then did it get to the point where it was like you knew it worked, and then like you just guys did it way too much?
It ran its course.
Yeah.
The business gets in that groove where, okay, I have seen enough gimmick matches, or I have seen enough 6-man tags, or I've seen enough high-flying match. I've seen you just. Again, I think we're right in that situation in professional wrestling, and I think they've seen a lot of what they've seen.
Yes,
since 1996.
But it's hard.
Right. It's hard.
It's hard to reinvent, and I guess and I guess what that's saying is, and I talked about a little bit on these things that you guys put on your YouTube channel. Is what did I talk about? That it's a lot you, man. Like you're putting a lot on the line, your reputation, and it's interesting to hear you say your father tried and failed a lot, because obviously you want this to work and become the next biggest thing in the world,
more than anything,
right? But you're obviously putting yourself out there big time, and almost 30 years of wrestling, right? And like failure is a possibility.
Yeah, well,
not the option you want.
It's always there, but in my mind,
right?
It's like the Edison analogy. He failed 999 times, but they don't remember him for that. They remember he invented the light bulb. I know that's a certain thing. So yeah, to push the envelope, to have a passion, I've got to drive, and so the haters out there, and I'm not saying specifically about me, but you can always talk about this guy screwed up here, screwed up here. One success puts that in the rearview mirror. And so as we're moving down this Global Force Wrestling journey, it's something that I'm trying to really keep my pulse on, that, okay, we're going to go this direction, let's tweak it and move over here. And that to me, when I look at not just wrestling promoters, but businessmen, and I read a lot of books and the Steve Jobs and I could go on and on about different businessmen, different things. Those real success stories are guys that say, okay, I came out of the gate, headed this direction. I'm going to tweak it just a little bit and see what kind of reaction I get or results, and then tweak it again. And then you just learn from your experiences.
Now, you tell me if I'm wrong on this, but like, you know, a lot of us always say but like wrestling's a different beast. You know, like I understand and I like that you're like, because that's a whole world in itself. Like the wrestling fans, we're a whole universe in ourselves, right? I don't even mean to say that world, but the business world, you know, I've looked at those business podcasts and it's the same fight for like who's trying to be the business guru or whatever. But are you looking at it? Yeah. When you come up with the business model and you come up with this thing of trying to make this business, you know, and I don't mean like this business, I mean your business of Global Force Wrestling, do you say like, oh, but wrestling's a different beast, I have to treat it differently, or are you looking at it in a business perspective? Does that make any sense at all? It
does. I think I'm hearing you, but I think you've really got to take a step back and not overanalyze things because it is a business. You can't continue with red ink. You can slice it and dice it 1,000 different ways. There comes a point in time when you go, okay, no matter how right I think I am, these results are not coming in.
Yeah.
So you can't treat it any other way than business. But with that being said, you know as well as I do, you can't take a guy, and WCW was the perfect example. You can't take a guy who is, whether he's in corporate law or sales or business, if he doesn't really understand the real nuts and bolts of the wrestling business to say, all right, I've got to not create characters. That was an era. Now, I think nowadays I've got to present real characters, good, bad, a little bit indifferent, and the people will gravitate, you know, I've said it. I'm not saying it because I'm on your podcast. You've got a unique ability to connect with people that very few in the business do. You do it differently. You know, you're not the traditional, I'll knock myself, traditional blonde-eyed, blue-eyed babyface coming through clapping, let's go, Jeff. No, you connect differently. And that, as a promoter, is something that you know, I'll give the no-brainers. I mean, when The Rock was what was he called before when he
Rocky Maivia?
Yeah, okay. When he was that, you looked at him and you didn't say, "Oh, that guy's terrible." You looked at him and go, "What's going on here?" Because he was big, impressive, and had charisma on his face.
Did that whole locker room have that?
I wasn't there, but he was in Tennessee. But I mean, he's third generation.
Yeah.
They just had to tweak it. And then Stone Cold, he had several different personas. It's because he could work, he could go, he could talk, all that. It's just you sort of, as a promoter, got to find, all right, I got to tweak this here and there, and the people will follow.
And I just want to see where your brain's at. Like you love that idea. Like sometimes I'm just saying, like,
love what idea?
Here's what I like. I like putting my dates together. To me, it's like a big puzzle. You know, I like piecing stuff together. It's almost like a brain game for me to like stay strong and stay together. Like, oh, I'm going to be here in this town and this town. You know, Luke Gallows is great at that. Like,
yep.
I think he gets off on that. Like, you know, trying to get money here and do this and do that. And so it's almost, you know, like, is this like...
What is it like?
Do you get off? Yeah, are you getting off on the promoting, or is it like?
No,
I want to get over the fact that it's not like, well, we're here. I'm Carney businessman.
Oh God, no,
you know what
no,
I'm saying?
no. I mean,
I know isn't.
No, I sat back and I mean, when you look at Monday Night Raw, when it went from doing 4 in one night to went live, and then Nitro followed, the presentation, the format of professional wrestling hasn't changed since then. We're going on 17 years.
Yeah.
You before that, it was the Hulkamania area where they'd tape TV every 3 weeks and do 100 promos and market specific, and then it was the territory days and you had everything. It hadn't changed, and I saw that several years ago. And what is relevant in today's world? What's the number one rated shows? American Idol had its run, The Voice had its run, Kardashians and realities and all that. And then you always hear, man, we've in this business, you hear, man, if people only really knew really what went on, they would be mesmerized. And so how do you make that world of professional wrestling be presented in? And that's really what we're doing, because there is I keep going back to, I can tell you the story of my life, and 90% of it's going to be boring, but 10% of it, you're going to say, hey, I want to know more about that. I want to know more. I want to know more. I want to know more. And so that's you talking about getting off on things. I'm looking at all these talents and young guys and backgrounds and where they came from and what they're doing what is relatable, what is not relatable, what is. I mean, to me, Mordetsky. You've been around. He's
used to be Chris Masters.
Yes, Chris, but he's a unique guy, and he really thinks a lot of himself.
Yeah.
You can't be around him for 2 or 3 minutes and not know that. And so he's an arrogant prick at times.
Yeah.
I mean, he really is. And Chris Masters was Chris Master-like Masters.
Mm-hmm.
Chris the Adonis Mordetsky. That's as real as can be, and he is a guy that got too much too soon. Failed miserably at times, went off to Europe, and he can go. I mean, he's ready to go. And there's a bunch of other stories like that.
Yeah, and so you.
I love it. Nick Aldis is another one.
But the promoting of it
is absolutely.
You like that. You like being
it.
that almost that mastermind. If you will.
Yeah, and to me, that's where it's changed. In the 70s and 80s, there were bookers that you had a lot of the talent had more free will. And then if we got into the 80s and you became Tugboat or the Goon or whatever, that's the mastermind. You're going to be this character. You're going to wear this. You're going to talk like this. You're actually going to wrestle like this. And then you got through the 90s. It had a little bit of an evolution. Now I think it's time for as a promoter to say, show me what you got, and then we'll sort of let the people tell us what they're going to latch on to. Mm-hmm. Because the people, I mean, wasn't podcast 10 years ago. Everything's so real and authentic now. Mm-hmm. People know. Mm-hmm. They know damn well if Jeff Jarrett or Colt Cabana are bullshitting them. The bullshit flag goes up real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which I don't know. I like, right?
Oh,
it's a smarter fan and a smarter fan base.
Yes.
And let's treat them.
But they're that way. I mean, you look at NFL now. I mean, or any sport. They know. I mean, they know where Tom Brady's girlfriends and Ben Affleck
so
and
weird.
I mean, they know everything.
You know, like we know our wrestling industry. We know how much the wrestling fans want to know. And sometimes I step back and I'm like, man, this is wild. But I guess, I didn't even think about it. Those NFL fans know the exact, and the NHL.
They know everything. Yes, they know. And same.
That's
with
just society, right?
Well, I mean, I hate to say, I brought up Kardashians a couple of times. I mean, what is she really what is her skill set? I still don't know.
Oh, fucking.
Sorry about that. I didn't lead you into that, but I mean, and people, she's the number 2 Instagram. I mean, people want to. Society's just changed. They want to know everything about everything.
Yeah. Well, cool, man.
That's good.
There it is. We're ending on Kardashian. Fucking. Sorry. So I'm sure they all know, but just. Let's hit them with where everything's at or what we want them to know.
Well,
on Twitter, you're what?
I'm at Real Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah.
We're at Real Jeff Jarrett, and I appreciate that plug. And globalforcewrestling.com is the website, and then all of our social media platforms are at GFW Wrestling, at GFW Wrestling. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and as I feel there is more that I like to revisit this. Maybe like in a year or whatever. But
sure.
And then
quicker than that, man.
But hopefully, as I become hopefully a part and more of a part, and then I'll be in the fold, and
I certainly hope so. Yeah. I'm going to talk to you about that off the record.
Okay.
And I mean that, but no, I'll say this: it's going to be. I'm already looking forward to it because I'm a very positive guy. I'm already looking forward to being back on this podcast and say, hey, remember when we were in the home of the NWA, Waterloo, Iowa, and we did the podcast in the Empire's Room and the things we talked about, and look at where we are now. Right. That's if you want to talk about something getting off on that's it. I mean, the only thing in life certain is change, and it's going to be exciting.
And then I want to talk about Eric Embry and Billy Joe Travis and
the one-legged tights.
And one-legged tights. We'll get it. Thanks for being on, Jeff.
Thanks, bro.
There you have it. Jeff Jarrett on the show. Jarrett. I could do that all day. Also, I didn't bring this up, but with the 2 fingers swipe to the left, 2 fingers swipe to the right, that was something I did a lot with my friends when I was in high school. It's a weird thing to say, but we all do our weird wrestling things when we were growing up, and now too, I guess, for most of us. A lot of us are doing the suckets and the 2 sweets, right? So it makes perfect sense. you notice we really didn't dive into WCW. We really didn't dive into the WWF stuff or TNA, and there's so much of that. So maybe we'll come back with Jeff, have him on again, and we could talk about that stuff. But for me, I love hearing about growing up in Memphis, how that stuff works, being around these kind of people, and the mindset of furthering your career however you do it. Jeff Jarrett, thank you for being on. Thanks for the fun shows. Before we get out of here, let's get into some plugs and
upcoming events.
ColtMerch.com and DigitalColt.com is the best way to support. Grab those brand new movies that Marty and I dub over. Twitter and Instagram at Colt Cabana. Facebook /AOW Podcast and /Colt Cabana. ColtWrestling@gmail.com is my very public email. CutMyPromo.com is my YouTube show. ColtCabana.com is my website. On there, I got a P.O. box. Jordan sent me a wrestling comic that he just started up. I'll put that by the bidet, and I'll be sure to flip through that. Also, Jim sent me a 10-inch vinyl. Not sure what I'm going to do with that. I don't know if I can listen to it, but I'll give it a shot. Upcoming Friday, September 11th, Cleveland, Ohio, AIWrestling.com. Saturday, September 12th, Brooklyn, New York, Pro Wrestling Syndicate.com. Sunday, September 20th, St. Petersburg, Russia, NSWrestling.ru. Sunday, September 27th, Port Hanume, California, HollywoodWrestling.com. Saturday, October 3rd in the afternoon, Monroe, New Jersey, I'll be signing at LegendsOfTheRing.com, and at night, Union, New Jersey, ProWrestlingSyndicate.com. Saturday, October 10th, Enfield, Connecticut, Us vs. Them Wrestling.com. Those are the upcoming shows. Hey, you listening, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you to Jeff Jarrett this week. Thanks to Cable Guy Jeff and Stu Stone. Thanks to Kid Russell and Matt Jenkins on the music. Dane Miller with the tech. HighSpots.com. Hundreds of full-length titles available to download, plus all the $5 wrestling titles. AMA knee pads, gear, mask. There was a thing with Hero, Naylor, and Meltzer? I got to check that out. Thanks to OneHourTees.com, who helps run ProWrestlingTees.com, the place where you can directly support your favorite independent wrestler. Go buy a t-shirt of any of those guys over there. And TweakedAudio.com/Colt, the earbuds that I use, get over 30% off and free shipping just because you listen to this show. That's it. I'm getting out of here. I'm done. No post-show ramble from me. We're just going to call it a day. Got a Pepsi Max cherry in one hand. Got a Quest bar in the other. Going to go snack. Going to go tan. Then I'm going to call it a day. Folks, I said folks twice already. This has been The Art of Wrestling. For Colt Cabana, I'm Colt Cabana. Thanks.